And their essays were so moving and so poignant. We had them read them at a city council meeting that was packed, and people were ready to jump on each other's throats. And when they heard those essays, when they heard the words coming out of these young people, words of harmony and appreciation for their neighbor and how they loved the same things, how they loved seeing each other, people started to cry. And they realized that the hatred that seemed to be pervading a city, the first majority Asian city in America, was not a hatred that children were born with, because the majority of the essays, in fact, every single one of the essays, spoke of harmony and peace and love and the desire to get along. And we thought, this has really got to be the hope of a city that is growing, because as we were a young city, it was the young that spoke to the city. That's when we started to see some real change.
Well, I love the San Gabriel Valley.
Welcome to the My SGV podcast.
So I grew up here and I still live in Alhambra.
I was raised in between Temple City and Alhambra.
Eventually resided in South San Gabriel.
Our mission is to capture and share the stories of the people of the San Gabriel Valley.
Monterey Park has pretty much been my whole life.
Well, I'm proud to say that I was born and raised in the San Gabriel Valley.
We believe our diversity is what makes the SGV great. And no matter where you are from in the San Gabriel Valley, you will feel welcome. All right, SGVers, welcome back to another episode of the My SGV podcast. Thank you for tuning in and spending this time with us. If you are new here, we bring you the stories of the people of the San Gabriel Valley. And if you are a returning listener, thank you so much for spending this time with us. We hope to bring you another interesting episode today. Well, Scott, when I interview or screen people who are interested in coming on the show, a lot of them come to us thinking like that we're just here to promote their business. And I make it very clear that, we're not a chamber of commerce and that's not what we do. And what we do is, and I think what comes across, because I would say the majority of people know, is to tell the stories of the people here, to chronicle the oral history of the people here, right?
Yeah. I've often said, I want this podcast to document the contemporary history of the San Gabriel Valley, because in 50 years or 100 years, I'm hoping, we're all hoping that people will be able to listen in and know what was going on at this time in the San Gabriel Valley. And I think we do a really good job at that. But what I am really, really excited about is that I think one of the most influential persons of the contemporary San Gabriel Valley era is our guest today, one of the most influential. And I'm just really proud that he's here with us today and excited, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I can sense that. It's the same when I have like people that I know or close friends that I know and have them on the show. I want to sort of show them off, right, to our audience. So I suspect you have that same feeling today. Before we get into it, I want to thank Paris Baguette for sponsoring the show with the delicious treats back there. Every week we have to resist, but the whole box goes to our guest every week. So go check them out, Paris Baguette in the city of San Gabriel. Say hi to Jason for us. All right, let's get to today's guest. Our guest today is someone who doesn't back down when things get tough. When his city dissolved the library board over, quote, too many foreign language books, he led the fight and even raised $18 million to expand the library. As a volunteer lawyer, he helped immigrants on their path to citizenship. As mayor of Monterey Park, he brought people together through a community essay contest. In the state assembly, he authored the Human Right to Water Law, ensuring clean water for disadvantaged communities, and the Homeowners Bill of Rights, helping families stay in their homes. He established the Day of Inclusion to honor immigrants' contributions. Throughout his career, he has embodied the kind of leadership that turns challenges into victories. He earned his law degree from UCLA, is the son of a World War II veteran, brother to a pastor, and husband to a U.S. Congresswoman. Let's give a warm welcome to the Honorable Mike Ng. Mike, welcome to the show.
My God, it's my honor to be here today.
Yeah, well, we're the honored ones. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mike, what stood out to me in our conversation before the show was this question that you asked. And you asked me a question that no other guest had asked me. You said, what makes a good guest on the show? And I thought, wow, what a brilliant question to ask. But it just, in that moment, I really valued your approach to the show. And I thank you for that. So, but the show is about you and your journey here. So let's start with, what's your connection to the San Gabriel Valley?
Well, listen, thank you so much for having me. And that question was usually because I tend to be the opposite of what people want out of an interview without knowing, and thank you for the clarity. I happen to have been born in California but raised in Hawaii. And I arrived here to go to law school, and I got married, and my wife and I thought we would settle down in downtown Los Angeles area, just north of the downtown area, in a new development. They had about 1,000 units. And settle down is figurative and literal, because as soon as we moved in and spent our life savings, the ground started to settle down and dropped about, I would say, an inch every 6 months or so. So we thought that maybe we better get out of there. And so a lot of our friends told us about this wonderful city named Monterey Park, which we'd already gone there for food. We've gone there to have meetings there. And it was a vibrant community going through a lot of social change at that time, particularly the English-only movement. And so that's how we ended up deciding that maybe we should move there.
So that sounds like that was early 80s probably you set up in Monterey Park?
Yes, toward the middle of middle of 1980. And so we actually moved to Monterey Park without paying off the mortgage for our house in Los Angeles. So we were paying for 2 mortgages, and I'd always come to Monterey Park with tears in my eyes because I would be trying to sell the house in Los Angeles and there'd be no takers when they found out the ground was sinking. So I was emotionally prepared to come to a city that itself was in tears. And it was in tears because it was a divided city. There were, I think, the San Gabriel Valley is one of the first cities that became majority Asian, the first actually city in the continental United States that became majority Asian. And that particular data change was not without a lot of discomfort. And the longtime residents there, and who can blame them, faced an influx of newcomers that many didn't speak English fluently, different food preferences. The signs were sometimes not always in English. And it created this this confrontation, if you have, almost physical. I was caught right in the middle. My wife and I were caught in the middle. The new immigrants didn't trust us because we don't speak Chinese. In fact, my parents, when it came to the box, what foreign language do you want your children? They took French. They thought that the world was going to all speak French. So I can order French fries and French bread fluently right now. But so I wasn't trusted by the immigrants. And, of course, the predominantly Caucasian population didn't trust me because I looked like I was one of, quote, the other. And I thought that, well, that was a perfect opportunity for me to get involved because both sides knew that I wouldn't sell out to the other side because both sides distrusted me. And I actually had gotten into the library board. And at the time, we thought 2 things. Number one, let's sponsor an essay contest that celebrated what new immigrants could bring to the table as well as what long-term residents had. So the essay contest was write an essay about a neighbor that is different from you and what you like about that. And then the second thing was we organized a coalition for harmony in Monterey Park in response to a city council ordinance that said that English should be the official language. And of course, saying that English should be the official language is like saying let's all use the dollar bill in our commerce because that already was acknowledged and such, and you would need to pass a law. And of course, that was pouring salt into the wounds of the new immigrants, many who stayed up after their full-time jobs to learn English to try to assimilate into the American society. And so as a result of that, our coalition brought together, I was one of the co-chairs, brought together people from the Latino community who were also part of the long-term and incoming immigrants, the Caucasian community, and the Asian community. And through this effort, we met several times. The backdrop was city council meetings that were sometimes attended by 500 or more people that spilled into the parking lot and the park next door, people that were so upset either for or against the influx of immigrants. Against that backdrop, we were finally able to have a coalition of people that said, let's think this through. We probably have more that unite us than divide us. We all want a safe community. We all want a pathway forward for our children. We all want to succeed in our daily lives. We all want peace and quiet. And so we went to one of the council members who himself was part of an immigrant family. He spoke a fluent European language when he was raised, and he was fluent in that language. And we were able to, with the help of a council member, the first Filipino-American councilman ever elected in the United States, first elected official in the United States. I happen to live on a street that he named. And so with that, the coalition, the thoughtful approach, the help of a sitting city council member, that one council member, European-American, changed his vote against that ordinance. And that was a tremendous victory because it could be symbolic, but we thought, well, this is the way that we should do things here. Let's work through the system. Let's get everybody's voice engaged. And the essay contest really struck a nerve because the majority of the essays were from children, young children, as young as 6 years old. And their essays were so moving and so poignant. We had them read them at a city council meeting that was packed, and people were ready to jump on each other's throats. And when they heard those essays, when they heard the words coming out of these young people, words of harmony and appreciation for their neighbor and how they love the same things, how they love seeing each other, people started to cry. And they realized that the hatred that seemed to be pervading a city, the first majority Asian city in America, was not a hatred that children were born with. It was something that we adults had learned and picked up and tried to inculcate into our children. And thankfully, it was not in time, because the majority of the essays, in fact, every single one of the essays, spoke of harmony and peace and love and the desire to get along. And we thought, this has really got to be the hope of a city that is growing, because as we were a young city, it was the young that spoke to the city. And that's when we started to see some real change. People that were on the sidelines that didn't believe that we could change started to talk about, why don't we elect some people that reflect the city's population. And so that's when people started running for office. People started trying to get on the commissions. And that's why I feel that this is a city that has always been moving toward a more perfect harmony, a more perfect union, if you will, as we see in the preamble to the Constitution. And so that's why I'm very excited, because it's a city that I still live in, a city that many people either have lived in or worked there or bought something there or moved through there or drive through there, that I think still resonates as a city of hope. It's called Monterey Park. It's a city of parks. We have 13 parks. Each park is unique, as are the residents, and each park needs to be watered in order to grow, and each park needs to be appreciated as the core of our city. And so that's why I moved from the City of Angels to the City of Parks. and I don't know which one is better, but I can tell you that I'm glad that I'm in Monterey Park.
Well, Russell, you actually grew up in Monterey Park during this era. I believe you were probably born around the time, that Mike and his wife moved to Monterey Park. What is your take on, what was happening around you as you were growing up? Could you see these things unfolding, and could you see the unity developing, or were you just too young at that time?
I want to first just acknowledge his story, because I'd never heard that story before. Yeah. And that's quite moving to imagine the children there reading those essays and touching the hearts of the people. And I'm so glad that you chose to share that with us and our audience. Your question of was I aware of this?
Yeah.
I feel like my experience growing up in Monterey Park was very different from I'll say my Asian friends, because my parents really wanted me to be American. They didn't send me to Japanese school. They put me in all the sports, Monterey Park Sports Club and Boy Scouts and bowling and all this. So I didn't experience the things that my friends who, are the same age grew up experiencing. And so my lens was quite different, right? And I didn't view, I went to Inez Elementary. I think it's 60% Asian, maybe even more, mostly Latino. So my life and experience was just, this little bubble there. But I think the only thing I remember was if I ever traveled outside of Monterey Park, I was like, well, it's not all Asian, because, everything there was quite Asian, right? So yeah, that was my experience growing up there. But I did leave, right? I did leave the San Gabriel Valley. I lived in, Kentucky, Maryland, and Germany for 2 years. And when I came back, I was like, this is really something special. And I had to leave to be more aware of that, right? Going to other places in the country where people literally had not seen a person of color, in person, right? And they definitely never saw an Asian person other than on TV or movies. That was a shock to me coming from here. So, but that was my experience in Monterey Park.
And I know, Mike, growing up, you, I've talked to you a little bit about your life growing up in Hawaii and the things that influenced you. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because it's remarkable that you had this ability to synthesize these different groups of people who were at odds with each other. What is it in your background that enabled you to do that type of thing?
That's a very good question. I was born in Oakland, California, and when I was about 6 months old, I took one of the first Pan American airplane clipper ships, I guess they used to call them, to Hawaii. The reason was, it's kind of interesting, my grandfather was a houseboy to the president of the Levi Jeans Company. And during the Chinese Exclusion Act, most people his age, Asian men, of course, who'd come here, he came to work on the railroads, became a chef. He ended up being trapped here. And so the only jobs available were these houseboy positions, gardener positions. So that's how I ended up here, because after he'd raised the children of the president of the Levi family, he was given or asked if he could take a exclusive Levi jeans company in Honolulu, Hawaii. And of course, if anyone's been to Hawaii, my parents thought, well, they were going to be millionaires, because my grandfather gave them the franchise. And of course, within 30 days, they'd sold one pair of jeans, and that person that bought it asked for a pair of scissors, and he cut the jeans off right at the above the knee, because he realized then that heavy jeans from the mainland are not going to sell in this humid place, tropical paradise. So my parents ended up having to work in the garment industry, and so I had to work from the age of 7 years old. And my childhood was very unhappy. not only did we have the pressures of the work and not knowing what was going to happen, but Hawaii is known as a paradise among ethnic groups, and it was true to a certain extent, but the schools that I went to was very polarized. Ethnic groups were constantly fighting each other, and many of their parents and grandparents had come to Hawaii to work on the plantations. And so these are people of color that had never lived together, but all of a sudden they had to work together. And they had different camps for different ethnic groups. And we were the children, a lot of the children I grew up with were children of color, Filipino Americans, people from Samoan, people with Samoan heritage, Hawaiian, of course, Native Hawaiians, as well as Chinese and Japanese and a few Koreans. Of course, at the time I was 6'5" and I was 300 pounds of muscle. So I wonder why I was bullied. But I was bullied, I would say, virtually every day. I hated to go to school. I cut class. I began really to wonder whether this world was correct for me. Two things changed my life. That was one, my mother was riding the bus and she was crying, and the woman next to her asked her why she was crying, and she said, "I think I'm losing my son," and that was me. And she gave her something that changed my life forever. And it gave her a Bible tract to go to a church that basically had programs every day of the week, and I was immersed in that. And that pretty much took me out of the school system and into the church system. It was a church system in which the ethnic groups really literally harmonized. They sang together in the choir, and I was able to see a different modeling in terms of ethnic groups. Instead of fighting each other and being locked in a high school locker or being punched in the face or being called names, we had notebooks that people passed around. What do you think about? And they'd mention someone like me, and it'd be every single obscenity you can think of. And so I grew up with very, very low self-esteem. But by going to the church, we were taught to speak to groups in Skid Row and try to convert them to Christianity. And I can tell you, I can face a group of 10,000 people without any fear, because when you face 100 people that want to devour you on a street corner in Skid Row, and you have to convert them, I'm able to speak to the needs of that community, and I think the needs of a lot of communities. So I began to see ethnic groups that could work together and ethnic groups that were fighting each other to the death. And so that was the church experience. And then the second thing that changed me was I joined this organization in high school called the Key Club. And the Key Club was a service organization. I'd never heard about that. I thought school was for fighting. But they had these huge projects, and I became a part of that. And when you become a part of that, you begin to work together. So I began to work together with a lot of the students that were of different ethnic backgrounds. And we ended up discovering that when you work together, you don't have to kill each other. And so that was kind of like, to make a short story very long, how I began to see both the bad and the good of our potential. And I think that choosing the potential of working together and promoting harmony and coalition building, although it doesn't always work, is really something that I've tried to strive for in my own life.
Well, that really ties together the work that you did in Monterey Park. Like, you had been prepped for many years at a very young age to appreciate the differences and bring those two groups together. Wow.
It's really inspiring. And, I am so inspired by you, because you've devoted your life to this kind of work, which very few people will take that sacrifice or make that sacrifice. How were you strong enough to make that affirmative sacrifice?
Well, You talk about inspiration. Most people, when they listen to me, they talk about perspiration because they're sweating that I'm talking so long. It's not really a choice. I think that all of us, we do what we've been taught to do. We're basically repeating some kind of lesson or modeling of somebody. And I'm fortunate to have had some positive modeling in terms of having a way forward. And you, of course, Scott, are one of those role models that I look up to, being, I think, the youngest person ever elected in Washington, the state of Washington, if not the United States. And I see somebody like yourself, a successful attorney who's devoted. I don't even know you as an attorney. I know you more of a coalition builder, of someone who supports a tremendous number of organizations and someone who's a personal inspiration. And so I've had people like you in my life, and I think that when you see someone like yourself, then you tend not to want to, model yourself after Al Capone.
But you've pulled off a few heists, haven't you?
Yeah, I managed to rob from myself and give
pay
to the
Paul.
poor, give to nonprofits.
That is what you've done, isn't it? You've not really robbed from yourself, but you've demanded something from yourself for other people.
When you're married to someone like Judy Chu, we both set very high standards for ourselves, and she, of course, started off at the Garvey School District and now is a U.S. Congresswoman and everything in between. So I think that's when you live and with someone that is a role model, not just for myself but for a lot of people internationally, nationally, et cetera, it's easy to see that there are people that have succeeded at a far greater level than I have, but it's in the striving. And also the thing that I've learned is that you can make a difference in something that may seem very small. I mean, we all read about headlines and people get awards for these fantastic programs that they do, but I think that I'll give you an example. People ask me, well, how come you didn't run for this office or that office? I much more enjoy it when someone is running for office for the first time and they call me up and they say, will you endorse me? I said, listen, my endorsement may or may not mean anything, but I'll help you. If you have a question about running for office and you have issues that you want to deal with, I'd be happy to talk to you about that. And so half of my time, my free time, is spent counseling people that want to get involved in public service. And I think that that's something that I found that I really enjoy. I used to think, public service is so hard to do that, so hard to become more well-known and raise all the money to run for office. But I think that I think it's in what you're doing and what you're doing as well, Russell. It's in learning and teaching, learning and advising, learning and sharing, I think is the best way to put it. Teaching is kind of, you're in a, maybe a dictatorial position, at least my teachers were to me.
Yeah.
But I think it's sharing those lessons, and people are hungry, particularly young people. Young people have, I identify them, but they have so many challenges. They're not comfortable with their skin. They feel that life is passing them by. They feel that everybody's becoming more successful than they are. And they always ask, how did you do this? And I tell them about my story. And I said, listen, my life was probably 50% what I considered failure and the other 50% good luck. And so I said, so that's basically how I feel, is that I've been blessed with a lot of failure that I've learned from. And I've been blessed. When I say that, I really mean that. My father, before, I used to tell my parents, I said, why is it that I've been bullied and I'm this and that, and not good in sports? I felt I was worthless in just about everything that was of value in society. And my father, before he passed away, he told me this one thing that stuck with me. He said, Mike, he said, there are two reactions that you can have to people in need. He said the first one is called sympathy. Oh yeah, I'm sorry you have cancer. I've heard about that. I've seen it on TV, and I know about that. And he said, but the second thing is called empathy. Empathy is something that you went through yourself. Oh, you've been bullied? Oh, I know about that. I didn't have to read about it. I know about it. You ran for office? Yeah, I know about that. And so I think the ability to empathize is the greatest gift that I have, but I couldn't have the gift of empathy if I didn't have the gift of failure, if I didn't have the gift of being bullied, if I didn't have to have the gift of being hated, of being chastised, of being down on myself, of being suicidal, et cetera, et cetera. And so all of these things suddenly got put into perspective because the people that come to me all feel the same things that I felt when I was growing up and even today. And so I think that it's not that I'm Mike Ng, the role model, and I'm so esteemed. It's Mike Ng is the failure that is trying to become successful. And I think that's what everybody identifies with.
Yeah.
You know, I was just thinking about that today, this morning, about failure. So a successful person like yourself looks at your life as being half failure and half luck.
That's right. And the luck was to be able to see people that had converted failure to success, or people that I knew nothing about that had a positive message about moving forward. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a lesson in life. Always keep talking, keep moving, keep engaging. And I think that's really what I try to do every day. I got an invitation to go to speak to a group I'd never heard of. And I said, well, maybe that's a group that I can learn from, you know, rather than going to people that are kind of tried and true and I kind of know what they already stand for. Mm-hmm. And I have maybe nothing new to offer to them.
Mike, you sound like a person who wisely applies the lessons of the past to your current or current decisions. I'm curious if you can walk us through a time where you had to make a really difficult decision.
Wow, that's probably true about a lot of things. I was really torn between returning to Hawaii, where I grew up, and where my friends were and my family was, and staying here in the United States, staying here in Los Angeles. I really went back and forth, literally. Yeah, that was something that really tested me. And it ended up being, if I went back to Hawaii, it would be very comfortable because I had a job lined up, and I knew every inch of Honolulu and Oahu. I could drive an hour, and I went through the whole place. In L.A., you drive an hour, and you've only gone 5 blocks. In Hawaii, you drive an hour, and I've pretty much gone through the entire island. And so it was a question of whether I wanted a life that was comfortable, and I could see it being very predictable. I could see being very happy, you know, and eating Hawaiian food every day and going swimming, going to the beach. And then I looked at a life here which, you know, would be very difficult, you know, starting a law practice, you know, trying to navigate this place we call Southern California, which is basically seems to be made up of several countries and several states. At the end of the day, I'm glad that I chose to stay here because I felt that I had more to offer here, and I also had more to get. This is a place where I could really grow. And every time I go back to Hawaii, I love it. And maybe someday I'll retire there. I've got a rocking chair reserved for me, but and a permanent supply of Hawaiian food. But I really feel that that's a very good question, Russell, because I think that at every point where I've had to make a decision, I've tended to choose the decision that would put me at more risk, that would be more unknown, but perhaps something that I could grow from. That's why I have come to this interview today.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Sounds like you would choose uncertainty over certainty in all those crossroads.
Yes, I don't maybe intentionally think that way, but that's how I pretty much ended up that way. Running for office, very uncertain future. Staying in my law office and making money and seeing clients and repeating laws that I already knew backward and forward, very easy. And so I ended up running for office at an older time. People are running for office now straight out of high school. There's an example of that right now, and I wish him all the luck in the world. But I was so comfortable in helping other people run for office. That was another decision. And finally, people said, well, how come you're not running for office? You're telling people to engage civically, how important it is to vote, how important it is to social change. Why isn't it that you're not doing it? And that really hit me in the head, or in the heart, actually. Not much in the head anymore. But so I think that was the correct choice. So I ended up running for office. And not only did I run for one office, I'm in my fourth branch of running for office, of actually being elected. I started off in the city council, state assembly, community college board of trustees, and I'm in the water district. As was mentioned earlier in your introduction, I authored this bill called the Human Right to Water, and I've always wanted to go back and maybe do one thing and try to do it better than having 25 different things to do all at the same time. And that was something that people said, why would you run for? You've already been in the state assembly, done this and done that. I thought, no, but I really feel that that is something that I could learn from, that I probably know a little bit about, but I could learn a lot more. That's why when that position was vacated, I applied to be appointed, and I just got elected for the first time.
Congratulations.
In November, because nobody ran against me. I guess it's too obscure.
Still, yeah.
So anyway, and to make, again, a short story long, yes, the answer is, given a choice between no risk, happiness, and risk, uncertainty, but perhaps growth, I will always choose, not always, but I will choose to try to grow myself.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Mike, we ask each guest to bring an item with them of significance. What did you bring with you today?
Brought something, and I apologize. It makes noise, and it probably reflects. But I brought a picture of myself when I first got elected. If I can show it,
yes,
like
please.
This. When I first got elected to the Monterey Park City Council, I brought it because if you look at the expression on my face, it's kind of you could either say that's a guy who's in over his head, bewilderment, or it could be someone that is looking toward the future with great expectation. And I had all of those feelings when I ran for office. I said, and I got elected. I said, boy, I be careful what you wish for. And it was they were installing these markers at some of the major intersections because a lot of people didn't know that they were in Monterey Park. And it also reflects me. I didn't know who I was at that time. I was becoming, just as the city was becoming an identity beyond just the shouting and the screaming, just beyond a city of new immigrants. It was trying to define itself as something more than that. And so that's why it's very symbolic, because it also shows a structure that is solid. It's a concrete, like a concrete barrier. I don't know if you've seen these, but when you're driving at different points of the city, this is what you'll see. And if you were to hit it with a car, the car probably would be damaged more than this. And so it's a foundation. And I think what I was searching for was a foundation, just as the city was searching for a foundation, an identity. And it had also that mixture of hope, pride in the past, and uncertainty, but faith in the future. That's our motto.
You feel that sort of legitimized you?
Well, I would say that if there was a hurricane or an earthquake, I could grab this and it would ground me.
There's something there. Yeah.
Yeah. It'd also be taking a picture like this. I could say, yeah, I've arrived.
Yeah.
I'm associated.
And that was the beginning. That was
this
where
is the
you
beginning.
Formed yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Should I put this down now?
Yes, yes.
Unfortunately, I don't have the muscles that you
Or
guys
you can
have.
just leave it up and you could lay down.
I don't have the muscles that you have. I need a strength coach.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out where that is because the only McDonald's I know in Monterey Park is on Atlantic.
Yeah, you're right. It's in fact, if you look here, it says Atlantic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we had them all over the city. Some of them they ended up taking down because they were.
Can I take a look at that?
Restructuring the seats, but he's got a good memory. Look at see that word Atlantic. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to see what the. So that's on Atlantic.
That's by East LA College.
Yeah, down it's South Atlantic, like down around Floral and.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
That was a long time ago. 2003. That was literally.
No, that was 1983.
1883.
1883.
Yeah, no, I served in Monterey Park from 2003 to 2006.
Oh, 2003. Okay.
Yeah. I'm sorry, what did I say? 1990?
No, you did say 2003.
Oh, okay.
I thought it was earlier than that.
Oh.
So.
And I thought you were making a joke at his age.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No.
Yeah, I don't. Sometimes I have to date myself because when I was growing up, nobody else would date me.
Well, Mike, I want to get into more of your story. Thank you for bringing that in. I want to take a closer look at it later on, but let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Okay, great.
Sometimes, even the best of us can slip up. That's why the law offices of Scott Wormuth are here to pick you back up again.
And while they strive to get you the biggest compensation possible, oh my gosh!
Their main concern is your health and recovery. They work closely with doctors and insurance companies to make sure you get the proper medical treatment.
Initial consultations are free, so give them a call.
At the law offices of Scott Wormuth, we're with you all the way.
I'm Scott Wormuth. We've been fighting for your rights for more than 40 years.
All right, we're back with Mike. Mike, before the break, you were sharing some stories with us of difficult decisions that you've had to make and the paths that you've chosen throughout your life. And we want to get back to your story. But when we get back from the break, we like to ask questions from this deck of cards they called icebreakers. And it's just a way for the audience to get to know all of us a little bit more. So I sort of wait to choose which one I'm going to ask depending on the guest. So I hope this one fits. When you die, what do you want to be remembered for?
I think a lot of people know me as a jokester, an MC. I guess I want to know for is that I made people laugh. Because when I was growing up, that's kind of like what I needed. And I think a lot of people that are going through challenges right now, they need a good laugh. And so that's all I want on my headstone. He made people laugh, although they'll spell Laff.
Thank you. And Scott?
Boy, that's it is something I think about. So I should have a ready answer, but I think I would like to be. Oh boy, I almost would take the opposite approach, and maybe I think what I'd like to be remembered for is that I took care of my children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
That's a good one. Yeah.
It's not as funny
I wish my
as
parents
yours.
could have. I wish my parents could have said that.
Yeah.
Well, one of my dreams is to, I envision being old with my wife surrounded by generations, right? And I think I want to be remembered along with my wife as the people in our family who changed our family for the better, both of ours, right? That we have brought healing to generations of brokenness or hurt. So, yeah, that's what I would like. A little bit deeper than we usually go with these questions, but you've given really deep answers, and so that's why I went with this card, Mike. If you're watching online or listening, please let us know when you die, what do you want to be remembered for?
Boy, I really want to dig into that with you, if you don't mind, Mike, because yes, a lot of people know you as this hilarious MC, and you like that. You like playing that role and being in front of people. And I remember asking you once, just a long time ago, and you told me you're very comfortable in front of big crowds and less comfortable in a one-on-one, right? Yeah. But how do you have that? Do you not get nervous before you go out in front of a big crowd?
I get more nervous in a situation like this where I'm going to be on a one-on-one or one-on-two or one-on-three. I think it goes back to my upbringing as a kid. I was in the church and speaking to big crowds. And I guess it was my salvation because I could lose myself. And I wasn't this guy who was struggling and this guy who was failing, but I was this person who was projecting something that was hopefully interesting and funny. And I guess I had two expressions growing up, laughing or crying. And I chose laughing. Be kind of hard to stand up and cry every day in front of people. You'd have to have onions, But I think that was it. I mean, laughter was my salvation, and I think that we all need a good laugh. We all need a good cry too. But I was the one crying all the time anyway. So, but thank you for that. I mean, and also, when you're bullied, the strongest muscle in your body has to be your tongue. So. I had to think on my feet. I had to diffuse situations. Sometimes you can diffuse a situation with laughter, and a lot of it was pointed at myself. I called it self-deprecation. And so, it's a defense mechanism. When people hate you and you start agreeing with them and saying, but I'm worse than what you're describing me, they kind of take a step back and that's what I want people to do, is take a step back and maybe laugh with me.
Yeah.
So, and then Russell, you mentioned the family situation. I had very challenging family experiences too. You had still long distance relationship that you're negotiating, and I identify that as an immigration lawyer. I've had to deal with over virtually every case, thousands of cases, and you too know that too. And where there's a family situation where people are having to survive long distance and maintaining a relationship that, the plant is only watered once a year, not every day, as we have people that are in our lives every day. And so that really touches me. And I've had that too, maintaining a relationship with, not necessarily with my immediate family, but not with my wife, but with, and also, my wife goes to Washington, D.C. every week, and I don't see her for a week. I think that that really brings out a type of personality that has to navigate that, be much more loving in the long run, much more strategic, and a very special person that I think you are, to overcome that, not just in one day, in 1 month, but over the course of many years. And I think I was reading someplace where and then when you're united, you have only a maximum number of days. Otherwise, you got to apply for a green card or a permanent residency. And how that must be so challenging. I love my spouse, my children, but I have a time limit on the amount of time I can be. I mean, that would be just. Of course, when people meet me, they want a time limit right away. I can't stand Mike for more than 5 minutes.
But actually, that's true. Both of you share that, limited time.
Well, he has that more than I do, because mine are through my clients, and you are through your own person. I didn't want to dwell on that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Making this publicly known, but I did hear about that story. I appreciate you telling that.
Yeah. Thank you for your words. And your empathy for my situation. We make the best out of it that we can. But the show is really about you, though, Mike. And I'm curious about a time where you may have found yourself or realized that you were on the wrong path, and what you did to rectify that.
Well, my life was on a long path for many years. I got very negative reinforcement. For example, when I was in school and my teacher would say, well, your verbal reasoning score is below 40%. Maybe you should go into the service industry. Maybe you could carry suitcases, or something like that. Hawaii is a tourism place, so try to maybe take a service position. You don't have to think about it. And I never thought that I would, graduate from school. Did horribly on exams, but I was able to. My parents would just sit down, go to the library. So the library is so important. Quiet, nobody's there. Try to tune everything out, and try to write down one or two things that you think would be a better path for you that would move you forward. And I began to do that very regularly. And then once I graduated from high school, got to get into college. I never thought I would get into college. But in those days, the local college, they had to accept just about everybody. So that's how I ended up there. I think you have to, it's kind of trite to say it, but if you can see it, you can be it. For me, if I could write it down, I was the editor of the high school paper and the local, the equivalent of the LA Times had a youth page. And I felt that writing is so safe. If you speak it, they can tear you down. They can boo you, right? They can walk away. They can look like they're angry. But when you write the words, that's it. You don't even know what their expression is when they're reading it. So I began to write, and that was my salvation, to write not just what my goals were, but to as a reporter for the local paper, I had to write about people that were doing great things. And so when you write about things, if you write about it, then maybe you could try to be that person in some small way too. So these were people that were successful in sports and politics and military life, and I began saying, wow, that's so amazing. I wish I could be that,
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I wish I could be it. So if you could see it, maybe you could be it. So for me, it was writing it and then trying to act it out in some way.
Yeah.
That was a boring answer, wasn't it?
No.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that you were that you had written for newspapers.
Yeah. In fact, when I came time to declare a major in college in my second year, I said, well, it's journalism. And my parents said, well, you'll probably starve to death. Why don't you take political science? You can become a lawyer. I did, and I still starve to death.
Well, Mike, all of your answers have been either entertaining or very informative and motivational. So thank you so much for those. We're going to move on, though, to the final segment of the show where we get to learn a little bit more about what you like or love about the San Gabriel Valley. Mike, this is the segment that we call the SGV3, and we ask you to share your 3 favorite or most memorable places or experiences in the San Gabriel Valley. So what would be number 1?
Well, as you might have guessed, Monterey Park is very special to me, and as you guessed as well, the library was something that defined my experience. And so the library is a place for me that is very special because it's one of the few places that almost everybody uses. If you look at the services offered by any given city or county, particularly the city, well, the police department, not too many people use that. Hopefully they don't have to call 911 too frequently. In the fire department, your house is burning down. Hopefully that doesn't occur that often. Not too many people have to add a bathroom, and so they don't necessarily go to City Hall to get a permit. And there are a lot of other services that cities offer, but if you think about it, the one thing that almost every resident knows about and has been there at one time or their kid has been there is the library. And so for me, the library is a microcosm of the life of a city. It is the heart of the city. It's something that's used regularly. You have senior citizens that don't have internet. They don't have a computer. They'll go there, and their young people, of course, go there to do their homework, and people in between will hang out there. But the most important thing was that you touched on, Russell, was there was a time I was the president of the library board, and most cities are called library trustees. I was like a trustee, not kind of like a jail trustee, but these were like books. As a trustee, you're responsible for the library, the budget, hiring and firing the librarian, et cetera, et cetera. And the library became something that was the battleground for the ideology in Monterey Park. Because out of that library, we would have cultural presentations, we'd have essay contests, we would have a community room that there's no place in the city you can have things. People would come to the library and say, can we borrow the library for a few hours and have put on a musical or something like that. And so as a result, it became a threat. Can you believe that? The best thing in the world that I thought about our city was the library, and it was a threat to the people on the city council who said, no, you're a threat against our way of life. And the threat, it turned out, was you have too many programs that are catering to immigrants. Where's the red meat and potatoes programs for long-time residents? Well, we have programs for many things, many people. But the most important thing that really got them was that this gentleman who was the mayor at the time said, you have too many damn foreign language books. He said, this is America. Those books were paid for by Americans, and those books should be in English. I thought, my goodness. And he was so threatened that he got the city council and I hate to say it, I'm ashamed of him, he got the city attorney to write a letter to dissolve the Library Board of Trustees. Dissolve us. I got the letter. Your services are no longer needed. And I, as a lawyer, I said, well, how can they do this? I looked into the education code and it said, you cannot do that. You cannot, they could have said, well, we're going to give the library $1 a year, but they can't dissolve libraries in the state of California and in the education code. And I did a legal brief and I presented it to the city council, and the one lawyer on the city council said, Mike is right, you can't dissolve it, but they went ahead and did it anyway. And so they thought, well, who are these five little munchkins on the city library board? They got no resources. Nobody's going to care about that. And so they were just cackling at the city council meeting that they had just gotten rid of us. But they didn't know that I was on the board of a legal services nonprofit. And I told the nonprofit, I said, we got this problem here. If they can do this to us, they can do it to any library that they don't like the books. They're doing it now today in America. But this is way back a long time ago, 20 years ago. And so what they did was they began calling around, and we got a pro bono lawyer from a law firm that maybe nobody's ever heard of. It's called O'Malveny and Myers, one of the largest law firms in the world. And they went for that like a marlin on a piece of bait. They said that is something they cannot do. We're there with you. And so at the end of the day, they sued the city of Monterey Park on that one issue, that they could not dissolve the library board. And we won at the first round of the trial level. In those days, it was a municipal court. And they said, well, we're going to appeal because they don't have enough money or resources to appeal it. At the end of the day, we appealed it to the appellate level, the appeals court above the local superior court or municipal court at the time. And after spending about $2 million worth of free legal services, we won. And we got reinstated, but we were out of that seat for a whole year. They said, we'll allow an advisory board. And so they appointed people that I'd never, I barely, well, let me put it this way. We were off for a whole year. And so I lost that library for a whole year. And there's a saying that you don't know that you're missing something until you lose it, right? You just kind of take it for granted. And so we had a reunion, and we were all crying. We said, oh, my God, this is something we never thought we could see. We would lost something, and then we were found. It's kind of like salvation. It was lost, but we were found. Mm-hmm. And so we were in the lost and found section, and we were found, and the library found us. And so that's why it was such a memorable place, because it was our hopes and our dreams that we had lost, and it represents something in the San Gabriel Valley that could be taken away from any moment. That people may not like the contributions of immigrants, whatever it may be, and they may say, well, let's shut that down. And we said, no, you shut up, because we're not going to let this shut down. And so that would be the first real place for me that has so much meaning. And I apologize, it happens to be in my city of Monterey Park, but it could be in any library.
And I know the name, but just for the video, can you give the name?
The name is called the Bruggemeyer Monterey Park Library, Bruggemeyer Memorial Library. And we tried to change it, but the Bruggemeyer family, of course, had given it that land to the library. And out of respect for that, we wanted to keep the name there because that's what it was. You know, they'll probably name they'll name a dump site after Mike King and they'll say, well, can't change it. He died 25 years ago, but got to keep that dump site under Mike King's name.
Well, thank you for sharing that. What would be a second place for you?
The second place would be this place in Monterey Park called the Cascade. And it's something that's like a state-recognized monument. But you drive to Monterey Park and you'd never suspect that right in the middle of the street, you look up and all of a sudden there's this beautiful waterfall with wonderful turquoise inlaid decorations. And to me, it was started by a Greek immigrant who put one of the statue of Athena. And to me, it's a symbolic thing in many ways. Number one, we're a city called Monterey Park, and what do we need? Parks need water. And it also represents the lifeblood of the city where we have water. It could be those immigrants that come in, or new residents, or young people that keep flowing into the city and revives it and changes it in positive ways and keeps it the way it is and yet also changes it for the better. It's the nutrient of the city. And it also represents what I thought was a piece of legislation that I authored in the State Assembly called the Human Right to Water. And I had gone to places in California where the women, the head of the households, are usually women, immigrant women, would go to first thing in the morning. They turn on the tap, and nothing but brown water. They couldn't even serve to their dog. They'd go to 7-Eleven and buy 25 pounds of water to take it home, and they'd also pay for water out of the tap. And so I went to enough communities, many of them like 5 minutes from here, and we did a bill based on the cries of those communities called the Human Right to Water, that everybody in California has a right to accessible, potable water, affordable water that they can use for their lifestyle, to maintain their lifestyle. And so that's why water represents that human right coming out of the Cascades. And,
when was that built?
It was built, if I could refer to my notes here, because I didn't want to speak off site if I'm allowed to do that in the podcast. But it was I knew it would be asked. It was in 1929.
Oh.
A real estate developer named Peter Snyder wanted to attract wealthy buyers because he called this the Beverly Hills of the East. And so he built this multi-tier cascade with staircases and lawns, and water came out of a fountain where there was a Greek goddess there. So anyway, unfortunately, the Great Depression wiped it out, but wiped out all the wealthy buyers coming here, and instead they got people like me, and so it ended up still surviving, even though he's long gone. People felt, well, this is such a one. There are very few cities that have this wonderful cascade coming down, and he also envisioned houses around it, so we have houses around it.
You know, we've had previous guests who have identified that as one of their favorite places.
Well, I'll have to get a copyright on this.
Mike the poet, I think it was. Yeah, he mentioned the Cascades.
Yeah.
And maybe Henry Lowe. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that, Mike. What would be a third place?
Well, the third place would be East Los Angeles College, which I served on the Community College Board of Trustees, and that was one of our campuses. But even aside from that, East Los Angeles College is just an amazing place. A lot of people have gone there. To me, it represents two or three things that I never knew about. First of all, I met the first undocumented Asian immigrants there that had organized themselves in an organization. And when you think of undocumented, sometimes don't think necessarily about Asian immigrants, but they were there. A lot of them had green cards given to their parents, but they didn't have them. So I met them, and they were very active there. And so the spirit of activism is very strong. I've also gone to one of the largest ceremonies. Hilda Solis, our congresswoman, got sworn in there, and the auditorium holds, I don't even know the number, almost over 1,000 people. And it's often used as a large meeting place for public officials. It's very, and then the final thing, it's also been the starting point for a lot of people. When I was working in the assembly, I would get people out applying for a job, and they'd always say, "Oh, yeah, I went to UC Berkeley, or I went to UCLA, or I went to Cal State." And I said, "Well, was that your first place?" And about half of them said, "No, I started at a community college." And a lot of people don't know this, but community colleges in California are virtually, for the most part, anyone could get in. There's no barrier to it. You can even get your high school diploma first there, and then start taking community college courses. So it represents accessibility. Sure. And so that's why I'm very proud of it, that we have one right here in Monterey Park. It's not called Monterey Park College, it's called East Los Angeles College, because it represents the hope of, at the time, of East LA. And so, so anyway, that just happens to be a place I'm very proud of. It's got its own art gallery right next to it, very well known too.
Yeah, thank you. So as a person who resides in Monterey Park, has had a career there, a passion, a love, serve the community, can you settle this once and for all? Because we have a video of East LA College on our intro, and a lot of people were like, East LA College is not in the SGV. And I was like, what are you talking about? It is in Monterey Park. So is East LA College a part of the San Gabriel Valley?
Well, physically it is, but I wouldn't begrudge people who think that it's part of something else. And the good thing about icons is that everybody feels so personally connected that they want to own it.
Yeah.
And when they want to own it, they want to identify it for themselves. So I think it's a good thing. And whatever it's there for anyone to claim it, make it yours, make it better, cherish it. And the main thing is that's what we want. The difference between icon and I can't is I can is an icon, meaning that I can make it better, and get your hands off of it, because it's really mine. But in the end, it's really ours. So I would say that the San Gabriel Valley is an identity that you wouldn't find necessarily 20, 30 years ago. They wouldn't think, like the developer thought it was part of East. You have West Los Angeles and you have East Los Angeles. But I would say that San Gabriel Valley now is something that is so iconic, and I know it is because it's now in the heart. It's no longer just on a page, or it's no longer on a map. It's in the heart, and people will speak so fondly. They're saying, "I'm from the SGV," and they don't even. It's like LA. They don't say Los Angeles. They say LA, or LA, or they say SGV. And so, I'm proud to be part of the SGV.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Mike, thank you so much for coming today and for sharing your story with us. I'm not sure if you want people reaching out to you directly, but if there is something that you want them to connect with you, what would that be?
They can email me. It's MikeEng123@AOL.com. I still have one of the initial AOL accounts. So it's MikeEng123@AOL.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here, Mike. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. If you got a complaint, go to scottwarmup.com.
A complaint about this show, or
any complaint in the world, he'll handle it.
They already do. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Mike, for coming on the show. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Well, there you go. Another show in the books for you. I really appreciated the insight and stories from Mike about not only the San Gabriel Valley, but the very city that I grew up in, and the impact that he had, and Scott had mentioned in the beginning of the show, not only on Monterey Park, but for the San Gabriel Valley and all the people here. I really felt that today in the stories that you shared, and in the earlier stories that he shared, you can see, how his life was sort of aligned for this type of work. So I'm honored to have captured this story for you guys, and I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you so much for spending this time with us. If you want to support the show in a more meaningful way, please become a patron on Patreon. You can check out our full back catalog of episodes on our website, mysgv.net. Check out our merch, like the mugs and hats and shirts that you see sometimes on the stories and whatnot. But until next week, we'll see you then. Thank you for joining us on the MySGV podcast. Check out more of our content on our website, mysgv.net. This show was produced by Scott Wormuth, directed by Russell Mano, edited by Victoria Allers, and original music by Yone OG. If you'd like to join us next week as we capture and share more stories from our diverse community, feel welcome.
Nice mother. No, kind of mother.